Good evening, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, we are continuing our mock draft Tuesday evening here. We're going to be doing a 12-team mock draft over on ESPN. We got a few guys in the chat room drafting with us. Shout out to Tony here. Good evening to Tony and everybody else hanging out with me tonight. We got Tony doing slot 11 down here, and he's going to be implementing my redraft strategy tonight, which is drafting a top 5 player at each position. And I'm glad he's going to try and do it, hopefully. And honestly, I think this strategy is really, really useful when you're picking in the back half, because we like the running backs early round 2. So it allows you to grab an early receiver and a running back in the second round. And if you guys are interested, I do have a free article on the website right now, which is called the Redraft Guide. I put out a big, long 50-minute video on this, I think on Sunday. Check it out. It's basically draft a top 5 player at each position, and I give you guys some stats and some actionable advice on it. But it's free for the rest of the week. I'm going to put it behind the paywall if you guys are interested. I think the month of August is only $7. So check out thefantasyfellowship.com. We're going to hop into a screen share here. And yeah, we got a lot. We got about a couple minutes here before it starts. I will let me just kind of pop open that redraft article for you guys. Dude, it was. I tried to get into a lobby, but as soon as I saw the 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time lobbies, they were already filled with like 4 or 5 people. So I pushed it back 5 minutes to try and get a fresher lobby. But we are officially in August. It's redraft season, so everyone's chomping at the bit to get in some of these mock drafts. But if you want, you guys can check out my redraft guide. I also put out, a 50-minute video on this on Sunday. So check it out. I think it's interesting. I can talk about the stats real quick. You know, a top 5 QB, which is, QB 1 through 5 versus QB 10, 11, 12. You're going to gain about 4.8 points per game if you have a top 5 QB at the end of the year, which is a big deal. And then for running backs, like you're gaining a little over 4 points per game in a PPR league over top 5 running back versus RB 10, 11, 12. And then in half PPR, it's about 4.11. So you gain 4 points for a running back. At receiver, you gain about 4.37. Half PPR receiver, it's not so much. So I think in half PPR league, I'm going to lean towards getting one of those top-end running backs. And then with tight ends, man, it's 4.84, which was the biggest gap between top 5 players at a position and the bottom 3 as far as, a tight end 1 goes. So check out that article. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And check out that video too. But we got about a minute here. Again, Harris is pick 4. I'm drafting in the 9th spot tonight. And we got Tony at pick 11. I think, and I can pull us up. I've been kind of tracking the ESPN ADP. Who did I put as the thumbnail guy for this video tonight? I can't remember who is number 9. But we're going to be drafting A.J. Brown. That's who we're trying to draft in this draft. I think A.J. Brown is the thumbnail guy. But we're going to probably start A.J. Brown, and then we're going to look at running backs in the second round. Because I like the value of the RBs round 2. I can maybe get Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley to fall to me. Probably don't want Saquon and AJB, but Jahmyr Gibbs would be ideal. Kieran Williams, I'm cool with. I like Pacheco quite a bit. So we're going to, basically, if you have a top 6 pick, you're looking at some of the running backs, CMC, Bijan, and Brees. Otherwise, you want one of those top-end receivers. But I think for the most part, if you're in the back half of the draft, I'm incentivized to take one of those receivers with my first pick and let the running backs fall to me round 2, because there's a wide range of running backs that I like in that area. But our draft is about to begin here. We'll let it open up and let's have some fun. Cheers! Thanks for hanging out with me, guys, on this lovely Tuesday evening. We got a minute to hang out here before the draft starts. Again, we're gonna try and get AJ Brown here, but honestly, if I'm picks 9, 10, 11, 12, and, I might be inclined to just grab Jahmyr Gibbs, man. He's a second-year ascending running back player. And, when I come back up to pick and I'm looking at wide receivers, there's a chance that Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, who's injured, might fall to me. We could probably try with that. JSC says, Travis Etienne or Kieran Williams. Are you more scared of Tank Bigsby or Blake Corum? I'm definitely more scared of Blake Corum. Blake Corum is, he's a third-round pick. He was a Heisman level running back that 1 year before he got hurt, and he played at a very big school, Michigan, just very dominant on a very good team. And honestly, like you could argue that Blake Corum is a better prospect coming out than Kieran Williams is. Like there's a chance Blake Corum might be better than Kieran Williams. We just don't know yet because Obviously, the Rams have played Kieran. They like what he does on the field. He's kind of the incumbent right now. But I do think there's a chance Corum eats into a little bit of Kieran's workload. And if ETN goes down, I think Corum is still at least an RB2. Whereas if ETN goes down, I don't think Tank Bigsby's like a banger of a start. They might use a committee there. So definitely more scared of Corum. Yeah, definitely more scared of Corum than Bigsby. I don't think it's close. Although, JSC, I will note, Bigsby's looking good. Like Tank Bigsby is actually looking pretty good in a lot of the Jags videos and notes that I've been seeing. So I do take pulls on Tank Bigsby late in best ball drafts. But hey, we're underway. And look at that. Christian McCaffrey's been hurt for 4 hours, and we already have Bijan Robinson going 101. I think you're going to see Christian McCaffrey begin to fall. Harris is probably choking down on his water right now because he's about to click CeeDee Lamb here at 104, which I get it. CeeDee Lamb is not with the team right now, and he takes Jamar Chase. Interesting. We'll have to talk to Harris about that later. And I get it. CeeDee Lamb is not with the team. He's awaiting that contract. But to me, I still think CeeDee Lamb is the 101 in fantasy football. He was just insane last year. If we go to Fantasy Pros weeks 1 through 17 scoring, we'll click on receiver, and I don't think CeeDee Lamb really got going up until about like week after the bye week. So week 8 is when he turned on, and like he was the clear cut wide receiver 1 during that span. By a good margin. Like we're talking 28 points per game at the receiver position. So that's a full 7 points ahead of Tyreek Hill. To me, I think it's a slam dunk that CeeDee Lamb should be the 101. But we're up to pick here. I got 15 seconds to do the job. I get the guy that I want to fall to me. I could take Breece Hall here, which I think is a really good pick. But I wanted A.J. Brown to fall to me. We're gonna take Breece Hall. When life gives you lemons, you take Breece Hall at pick 109. I don't think Jonathan Taylor should have been picked ahead of him. So we will capitalize on Breece Hall falling to us, even though I can never get whoever the thumbnail guy is cursed. I can never draft him in those videos. And A.J. Brown does go pick number 10. So it's up to Tony here. Tony grabs Garrett Wilson, who, again, in my redraft guide article, I highlighted Garrett Wilson as one of those receivers who's being drafted outside the top 5 in ADP that could easily finish as top 5. But I'm going to lock in Breece Hall and go with that. We see Garrett Wilson, Saquon Barkley finish round 1, Puka, Gibbs, and Olave to start round 2. And I'm back up to pick here. Now, I could plug in one of my top 5 receiver options here, whether that's Marvin, Devontae, or Drake London. I think that's kind of the group that I'm looking at. I could go running back start here, which is something that I haven't tried yet. So I think we're going to go Isaiah Pacheco, RB2. I want a piece of that Chiefs offense. And yeah, when life hands you Breece, you turn it into a Hall. We got Breece Hall, baby, at pick 109, which feels pretty crazy. And so I'm not exactly following my redraft guide here. I think this one's for science here. We're seeing if we can pull off a running back start tonight. I've done so many of these mock drafts where, we go wide receiver, or I do the wide receiver running back start. Let's see what a double running back start looks like tonight and see if we just like it. Again, that's the point of doing mock drafts. You guys have to experiment and learn some things. We do see Brandon Ayuk go 17, Kieran pick 18. I think Kieran's a good pick. I don't like Derrick Henry in a full PPR league. I'm not going to take the 29-year-old running back that's not going to catch a lot of passes. So I'm kind of out on Henry. I'd rather have the next 3 players off the board here. ETN, London, or Devon Achane are much better picks to me that I'm more excited about. Younger ascending players. Harris really likes his Drake London, doesn't he? Tony Pollard versus Tajay Spears. They are saying it's a true 50-50 split. I like both players. I don't know who's going to lead the team in total PPR points. I think Tajay Spears is a more dynamic receiving back. So I tend to lean Tajay Spears because he's also a little bit cheaper in terms of ADP. But I think there's room for both guys to be good picks this year, especially if it is a true 50-50 split. They don't really have a competent RB3. Like, we're just going to see a 2-back system here. And what I really like what the Titans have done is, like, Pollard and Spears, they offer the same skill set. And when doesn't matter who's on the field, doesn't matter what running back's on the field, he's going to, like, they're going to be able to run the same offense. And I don't know if I agree with that, JSC. He didn't fail last year. He was injured at the beginning of last year, but down the stretch last year, he became a better player. If we look at I don't know, let's just pick like week 10 through 17 last year in a full PPR league. We do have Tony Pollard. He was RB20 from that weeks, but if we look, let's look week 11 to 17. Tony Pollard's going to jump up to about RB17. So I think he's an RB2 value, and for where he's being drafted, I don't mind paying that price. We'll see if the Titans can run block, but he's definitely not. Yeah, I guess I do agree with you. He's not a workhorse back. He is a committee back, and that's what made him great in Dallas for that season because he was able to stay fresh and healthy and make some good moves. But, hey, we're on the clock here. Deebo Samuel's probably my favorite pick right now in the 3rd round. Let's see if we can find any of these stud wide receivers here that I think could be top 5. I'm going to probably go DK Metcalf here, who I think, again, I think I'm locking myself into about 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, maybe 80 or so catches. I like Devonta Smith a lot. I like DJ Moore and Jalen Waddle a lot as well. But I'm going to take – to me, I'm hitting a single here with DK Metcalf. The only way he finishes top 5 at receiver is if he catches 12, 13 touchdowns and goes for like 1,200-plus yards, which, again, I think we've talked about the Seahawks. Like I'm cautiously optimistic that they're going to they're going to throw the football more than we've seen them in the past. So I don't mind grabbing DK Metcalf here. He's probably not a top 10 receiver, but definitely a top 12 option for me most weeks, and I like his ceiling. So DK Metcalf, wide receiver 1. We have Breece Hall, Pacheco, and DK Metcalf. I think this is pretty simple. I'm taking Zay Flowers in a full PPR league just because I think I can trust him every week to hit at least 8 to 10 points. You're going to have those weeks from Pickens where it's only 2 for 28 or something like that. Whereas I think Flowers has earned a higher target share, more consistent workload. Whereas Pickens, he's going to have the yards by the end of the year. We don't know about touchdowns and receptions. I think I'm going Zay Flowers over Pickens in full PPR. And this one's pretty easy for me. I'm going DK Metcalf over Michael Pittman. I like Pittman, but, I think I like Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor more. So I'm taking Metcalf as the fiddle there. And, hey, we're up to pick again. I get Jalen Waddle and DJ Moore to fall to me. So, maybe these guys aren't top 5 upside receivers, but for going running back start to give me DJ Moore or Jalen Waddle feels pretty sweet here. I usually take Jalen Waddle, who I like a lot, but I guess in this draft, I'm going to go DJ Moore just to change it up. And DJ Moore was lights out last year with Justin Fields. And, he was wide receiver from weeks 11 through 17 last year. DJ Moore was wide receiver 10. And there's a bye week in there. He had one dud of 4.8 points, but a 22, a 22, a 26, and a 30. I mean, his ceiling is top 5 ceiling every week. So I do get a little bit of ceiling play there with DJ Moore, who I like a lot. Where was Jalen Waddle those last few weeks here? Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 23. He did miss week 6. He did miss week 17. So if I just change that to week 16 here, Waddle is a guy that could finish as a top 10, top 12 wide receiver. I just worry that his ceiling games aren't, exactly there as long as Tyreek Hill is healthy. But I do like Waddle as kind of like a, wide receiver. If you can get him as your wide receiver 3, I think that's a huge positional value. And yeah, dude, I like Jackson Smith-Njigba a lot. There's a chance that he actually leads the team in receptions. Tyler Lockett's getting up there in age, but I keep going back to this Washington Huskies offense that we saw last few years in college football, where they're airing it out. They're doing 3 wide receiver stuff. I think we're going to get a fresh look at Seattle, more plays ran by them. They want to be more aggressive and throwing the ball downfield. DK Metcalf's in his prime. I have no issue taking DK Metcalf. And again, because I started running back, we're kind of wide netting our receiver workload here. Honestly, this feels pretty good. Breece Hall, Pacheco, Metcalf, and DJ Moore. I'm kind of liking, if you're in the back end of round 1, running back start's not too bad. So if we do see Sam Howell, that's another reason why I don't mind grabbing DK Metcalf and JSN, because there might be a little bit of drop off from Geno to Sam value. Maybe Sam Howell's more erratic and a little less consistent, but you're still going to have him taking shots. Like he was able to float Terry McLaurin and a couple other players last year And he does add a little bit of value to his leg. So, in Superflex leagues, if Geno Smith goes down, everybody's grabbing Sam Howell. It's not like he's a bum, like a complete bum. I think he can keep the offense on track and afloat. And I think that's one of the more underrated signings the trades this offseason. So I think there's an incentive to taking guys like DK and JSN because there's not going to be too much of a drop off if Geno gets hurt. And if anything, like a guy like Sam Howell, he might throw more go balls to DK Metcalf, or he might zing in more plays that normally Geno might not throw. So I really like Sam Howell as a backup. Definitely not their long-term starter, and I don't think Sam Howell is either. But he's definitely a good insurance policy. But hey, we're up to pick again. If I'm trying to do a top 5 upside pick at each position, we're looking like we need to take a tight end soon or a quarterback. Anthony Richardson just came off the board. I'm looking at Burrow, Prescott, Murray, Jordan Love. I like all of these guys as top end QBs. If I want to go tight end, I could go Dalton Kincaid, who you guys know I like a lot. But I think there's value in grabbing wide receiver here. And I'm going to plug that in with Christian Kirk. I kind of made a quick call there. I think in full PPR leagues, Christian Kirk's going to lead the Jaguars in receivers and receiving yards. I mean, Tank Dell, Higgins, these guys are both number 2s. Dell's a number 3. George Pickens is going to be inconsistent. Chris Godwin's a number 2. Keenan Allen's kind of a 1A, 1B. McLaurin was a good pick there, but I'm taking Christian Kirk, who I have ranked pretty highly in my numbers here. Even though his ADP is pretty low, I'm still going to click on Christian Kirk there as my flex. Let's see. After I take Kirk, you got Ramondre, Godwin, and DeAndre Swift. We got a Najee Harris pull. And again, if I want a top tight end, so I don't mind Kincaid here. I totally don't mind Kincaid if he falls to me we'll see what Tony does here. I'm sure Tony's looking at tight ends right now. And Tony already had Laporta, so he's good to go. He did the top 5 upside at each position. I like what Tony did there. That's pretty nice looking. So I'm concerned on Kincaid not being able to do what I want him to do this year, especially with Dawson Knox maybe being on the field more than people expect. I like some of the running backs here, but I'm in on Kyle Pitts, man. I think he's the tight end that you want this year if you're kind of waiting for outside the top 5 tight end. And it sounds like his conditioning, like they're ramping him up for a massive workload. And I still think he's one of the greatest tight end prospects that we've seen in the last few years. TJ Hawkinson was the tight end 1 all of last year with Kirk Cousins. And even when Kirk Cousins was out, like TJ Hawkinson was still getting a lot of targets in that offense. So I don't know. I'm willing to take a chance on Kyle Pitts. I now have my top 5 tight end play. Metcalf, DJ Moore, and Christian Kirk. Maybe these guys aren't top 5 receivers, but one of them's top 10, top 12. I feel pretty good about one of them being, if not, they're all top 20. And then I might have 2 top 5 running backs here. So we'll probably take a peek at quarterback when it comes back around. Tony did grab Kyler Murray, who's on my short list for QB1s. It looks like Dalton Kincaid went here at pick 67. Honestly, guys, like I don't get me wrong. I love Kelsey and Laporta. You are missing out on some of the top end. Like you're missing out on a top end running back or receiver there when you take a tight end round 3. It can work out, but I think round 6, if you can get Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, Evan Ingram, like that sounds pretty good to me. Because a lot of these players that are being taken right now are kind of boom bust, or they do have some injury risks, or they do have question marks. But these tight ends don't have question marks that I think, they're starting tight ends in fantasy. So I like what we got going on here. But we're moving into the 7th round. Tajay Spears off the board before Tony Pollard. Interesting. And I do want to note, I think it's a little early for Jonathan Brooks here at pick 63. We know he's missing the first 2 or 3 games. It sounds like week 3 and 4, they're going to try and get him ready and back on the field. George Kittle, round 7, is such a good tight end value, especially if they move on from Brandon Ayuk. Jalen Warren, one of my favorite picks. You guys know me. I love Jalen Warren. Harris grabbing a great value here on Jaden Reed. There goes Joe Burrow. And again, David Njoku, and that kind of ends the tight end tier for me. If I'm looking for a QB1, I got Dak Prescott and Jordan Love here on the board, which sounds pretty good to me. I know Tony's got a quarterback. Does Clayton? No, and Art. These guys do have it. So if I'm looking real quick, I got 7 seconds to do the job. Can I just grab a guy here? Boom, I'm grabbing Terry McLaurin. Just put Terry McLaurin on my bench. We need wide receivers. And I don't think Tony or Art are taking a quarterback here. So I'm hoping that I can get Jordan Love to fall back to me. I get my Packer quarterback. Tony does grab Javonte Williams, and he's done that a handful of times in these mock drafts. And I think, round 7, round 8, it's hard to find a better upside play at running back than Javonte Williams. I think he's the clear-cut leader in the Broncos backfield. Don't get me wrong. I love Jalen Warren. I like Tajay Spears. Raheem Mostert's also pretty good too. And Tony Pollard. So many good running backs in this range right now that you can grab. But I think Javonte Williams, you're getting a guy that's going to get the ball over 200 carries, probably over 40 catches. Like, there's a really good chance that he's a top 12 back in fantasy football this year. And then Art does grab Deontay Johnson, who's one of my favorite wide receiver sleepers you could possibly grab here. So Tony on the clock. Look at that. I waited, and I'm going to get my Jordan Love here, unless this Clayton's auto pick here. But Tony grabs Rashee Rice. I get the guy that was just unstoppable last year in terms of quarterback here. I got about 20 seconds to show you what's going on. If we just look real quick from about week 8 to 17, you're going to see Jordan Love here, quarterback 4. Phenomenal end of the season. Of course, everyone saw what he did against Dallas in the playoffs. Everybody saw them almost beat the 49ers. Dude was a top 5 QB last year. And again, half the year, he didn't even play well. If I go, again, maybe if I go to week 7, let's see what his numbers look like back to week 7. Again, QB 5. So I feel pretty strongly about Jordan Love being one of the best QB values in fantasy football this year. And honestly, if you just want to wait for Burrow, Dak, Love, Murray, to me, that's kind of shaping up as the best value. And our guy Harris, can we get a premature Super Bowl prediction? The Chiefs are the chalk pick for the AFC, but something tells me Buffalo is going to be feisty. Dude, I think it's Cincinnati. I think my dark horse is Cincinnati for the AFC. I'm going to say Kansas City makes it to the Super Bowl. Kansas City versus Cincinnati for the AFC conference title. And then on the NFC side, I'm going to go Green Bay, Philadelphia. I'm going to go Green Bay, Philadelphia. And I'm going to put Green Bay. I'm trying not to be a homer here, but Green Bay, it feels really good this year. Green Bay, if they stay healthy, that offense stays healthy. They got Jacobs, Dillon, and Marshawn Lloyd. They have 3 backs that they like. They got 2 tight ends that they like. They got 6 wide receivers that they like. That offense is primed, and they put a lot of investments on the defensive side of the ball in terms of first-round picks the last few years. New defensive coordinator that's going to be more aggressive, move guys around. My dream, I guess, is Kansas City versus Green Bay. Dark horse, I'm going to say Cincinnati versus Philadelphia. Early Super Bowl predictions. Maybe we'll bring that up more when we get closer to Labor Day weekend. But I think the NFC side, I think San Fran, Green Bay, and Eagles are the teams you're trying to beat. AFC, it's Chiefs, Bengals, and who else did I forget there? I don't remember. But we're up to pick here. We're looking for some depth. I need some running backs. I could use some more receivers here. I'm going to grab my running back bullet here and Chase Brown. I think he's a high upside guy for the Bengals. That makes a lot of sense in full PPR. Our guy Harris loves Zach Moss, and I believe in Zach Moss a lot. But I think he's a high volume rusher, maybe not a big receiver. I think he's just an okay talent. I'm willing to bet on the upside of a Chase Brown on my bench and see what can happen. I have 4 wide receivers that I feel pretty good about: Metcalf, DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, and Terry McLaurin. I have 3 running backs: Breece Hall, Pacheco, and Chase Brown. I'm kind of open. Yeah, dude. I mean, people forget, like they are sick, dude. They struggled last year down the stretch without an offensive coordinator. They bring in, Kellen Moore. That they revamped that defense. That secondary was pretty bad last year. People are kind of sleeping on the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the team to beat in the AFC East. But hey, we're up to pick again. Tight ends, I'm not taking a backup tight end, but Brock Bowers could be cool if I want to back up my Kyle Pitts. Wide receivers here, there are a lot of guys that I do like. Running backs here, Chubb, Edwards, I'm not really married to any of these guys here. So I'm going to grab my receiver that I think is going to lead the Bengals in snaps this year and targets. It's going to be Curtis Samuel. So we got our Buffalo Bill, and, I kind of want to make sure I continue to get good offenses. I got Pacheco off the Chiefs. I got Jordan Love off the Packers. I got Pitts off the Falcons, Chase Brown off the Bengals, Curtis Samuel off the Bills. You want to try and make sure you get bets on each offense with some certain players. So I'm actually, for going running back, that's not something I usually do, but it's kind of looking okay, man. It's kind of looking okay. And who was that other team I forgot in the AFC East? The Bengals, the Chiefs, and I feel like I'm totally forgetting it, blanking on a team there. The Bills. The Bills are, I don't know, something about Josh Allen. Like, he's just got so much charisma. You kind of want to root for Josh Allen. And maybe less is more over there with Stephon Diggs being the guy that, they've just banked on the last few years and really helped Josh Allen grow. But I'm curious about you guys in the chat room. What are your Super Bowl predictions? You guys can give me your two AFC East, or give me your two AFC conference teams. Give me your two NFC conference teams and let me know. Let's see who's voting for the Super Bowl, or at least the Final Four. I'm curious what you guys think there. We're moving into the 11th round here. I'll kind of recap. We got some auto pickers in here, which is fine. I think Jerome Ford, Blake Corum are good, bench running back picks. I love Curtis Samuel. Nick Chubb might be an okay bench pick this year in redraft. Mike Williams. I'm coming on to Jerry Jeudy. I think J.K. Dobbins is worth the pull. I'd like Gus Edwards to start the year. I don't know if he's going to finish the year. Brock Bowers, great round 10 pull. Xavier Worthy, great round 10 pull. And Jared Goff. I actually don't even pay attention to the top 100. You'd have to tell me who the top 10 are. I don't pay attention because it's voted on by the players, and I don't know how accurate it is. If I had to guess, the number one player probably should have been Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey. Maybe one of those two players are the top two. Maybe CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. That would be my guess for the top four. Maybe Lamar Jackson in the top 5 too. I don't really know anything about the top 100 this year. But we're moving into the 11th round. You're seeing some auto drafters. You're seeing values in Jared Goff. I'm not clicking on TJ Hawkinson this year. I think he's out the first 4 to 6 weeks. And, even when he returns, we're talking about a tight end coming off a pretty serious knee injury with suspect QB play behind JJ and Addison on the depth chart. Probably a slow ramp up. I think there's better picks in round 11 than TJ Hawkinson. And you have to basically wait till mid-October to get TJ on your team. But hey, we're up to pick here. I'm getting the guys that I wanted to fall to me. I kind of wanted some running backs here, but it's really hard for me to ignore a Romeo Doubs. I like Shaheed, Mooney, Myers, Douglas. I think these guys are all nice players, but give me Romeo Doubs. I want a chance there's a chance Romeo Doubs is the leading touchdown guy in Green Bay. He's the most consistent. He stays healthiest. There's a chance Romeo Doubs can be starting for me. Oh, no. Myles Garrett, which is cool. Mahomes at 4, CMC 3. I don't agree with Lamar over Mahomes. I think that's kind of wrong. I also think last year Lamar shouldn't have been MVP. I feel very strongly. Lamar was not my MVP last year. I think CMC was my MVP. If you don't give it to CMC, you give it to Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, or Brock Purdy. I don't think Lamar Jackson had that great of a season. He simply had a good year, and he won the most games in the AFC, which to me, that doesn't equal MVP. There's a lot of moving parts there. And I love Lamar. But I don't think he was the most valuable player last year. We're moving into the 13th round here. I like my receiver core. We got 6 pretty good ones. Metcalf, DJ Moore, Kirk, McLaurin, Samuel, and Dobbs. If I take a look at running backs real quick here, I'm going to put my stamp on this player being the sleeper running back to draft in all drafts over, guys like Marshawn Lloyd and some of the guys like Ty Chandler. I think it's Rico Dowdle. I simply think Rico Dowdle is better than Ezekiel Elliott at this point. I've been seeing a lot of plays where Rico Dowdle's catching passes out of the backfield. He's got more juice than Ezekiel Elliott. Sure, Elliott might lead the team in carries and be kind of their plotter, but like Rico Dowdle, in a way, could do a Tony Pollard impression, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's, the high floor PPR play that gets you 10 points every week. A poor man's Jalen Warren or a poor man's Tony Pollard at that point. So I think Rico Dowdle makes a lot of sense to put on your bench this year and see what happens. I really do like Ty Chandler. Tony grabbed Ty Chandler there. Chandler's going to be starting at some point over Aaron Jones when he's missing some time. So I think that's a great pull there. Tony says Cincinnati, KC, and Philly, San Francisco. That's same feelings here. I got a feeling 49ers will fall apart. Yeah, I just, to me, I'm a big person that, I believe in energy and the universe and like good karma and things like that. This Brandon Ayuk stuff and just them not really paying players, like they paid Christian McCaffrey, who's also on the Madden cover. They usually teams that make the Super Bowl and lose the Super Bowl struggle in the next year. So I personally don't feel great about the 49ers. For fantasy, I love Deebo Samuel the most on that team, and I think Brock Purdy can be fine as your QB2 in Superflex. But I'm a little bit concerned about taking Christian McCaffrey, concerned about taking Ayuk because wherever he goes, it's probably not a great team. So I agree. I'm iffy on the 49ers, which is why I said Green Bay, Philly. Recon XBXB, good evening. I'm at pick 110 ESPN Full PPR. I'm in such an awkward position because I don't know who to choose between JT, Gibbs, Puka, Garrett. Please help. Who do I take at the first and second round? Well, so, I had ninth overall on this pick. If you're the 110, if you want Jahmyr Gibbs, man, I think you take Jahmyr Gibbs and you just say maybe Puka or Garrett will fall to me on the turn, which could totally be. Otherwise, if you feel good about, guys like Saquon Barkley or Kieran Williams or Pacheco, that could, in the second, you're usually looking at Kieran Henry, Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel really strongly about Jahmyr Gibbs being the guy that I'm looking for. Doesn't matter if it's first or second round. And, receivers, Garrett Wilson, Puka, Olave, like these guys are all up and coming receivers that could easily be top 10, top 5 players. So I think Gibbs is kind of the clear cut above the running backs that he's being drafted over. And I'd probably lean with him, but I got 5 seconds to make a quick pick here. I'm just going to fire away here and boom, we'll grab Elijah Mitchell. CMC's got a calf injury. I'll babysit Elijah Mitchell. But back to recons here. If you like JT or Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it's fine to grab that guy at 10th overall. And honestly, if you're picking 10th overall, like AJ Brown was here, Garrett Wilson's here, these guys probably don't come back to you here. So Chris Olave is a nice consolation though. Otherwise, I'm fine with Pacheco. Gun to my head here, I'm probably taking AJB or Garrett Wilson at 10. And I'm going to say, if I get Jahmyr Gibbs to come back to 14, cool. Otherwise, I'm just going to take Pacheco. So it's a difference of AJ Brown and Pacheco or Gibbs and Olave. But again, I'm content with Olave because I think he's going to get pummeled with targets by Derek Carr this year. And, if you take Olave round 2, you can just come back round 3 and grab another receiver with some top 10, top 12 upside to really lock in Olave and that third round player as like, I have 2 really good receivers. Harris says Detroit. I like Detroit, but man, I think their defense is worrisome. Very worrisome for me on their defense. I got one bench spot to fill here. Looking around. Look at the tight ends. Schultz, Fant. The tight ends are dust. I'm just going to grab a running back here. Tyrone Tracy, Miles Sanders. It's pretty ugly. I'm going to grab Bucky Irving here, who had some really good camp reports this last weekend saying that he's going to be a part of the Bucs offense. And, if anything happens to Rachaad White, like we're talking Bucky Irving on the waiver wire, there's a chance Bucky Irving eats into Rachaad White's workload. So I'll take some gambles here at running back. I feel really good about my receivers. I got Love and Kyle Pitts. Something happens to those guys, we'll figure it out. But overall, I feel pretty good about what we built. Texans or Packers, which team more likely to make conference championship game? I'm going to lean Packers just because I've seen them look really good in the playoffs. And like, dude, they should have beaten San Francisco last year. There's a few plays that bounced the wrong way. They missed a field goal attempt that was makeable. The Packers should have been in the conference championship last year. And I think there's a chance that they, again, they won at Detroit. Detroit beat them pretty good early in the season, but when the Packers were rolling last year, they might have been the best team in the NFC, outside of San Francisco down the stretch. So I'm going to lean Packers. I can see the Texans making the championship game, but I think there's more competition in the AFC. We've already mentioned Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo. I do think the Packers are in the top 4 conversation. I don't know if the Texans are quite in the top 4 conversation, but they're close. But I'm going to lean Packers here. I think they learned last year that they were pretty good and that they can. I think the Packers learned last year that they can beat San Francisco, and they had them on the ropes, to say the least. We're going to finish up with defense and kicker here. I don't care who my defense is right now. It's August 6th. We'll figure this out soon. But I do, we got to start looking. I really need to start making my list of defenses that I want to draft. My bad. Let's go to schedule. And we'll look at week 1 here. I'm going to be on the board really quickly here. Who's winning in week 1? Buffalo versus Arizona, Chicago versus Tennessee. I like Cincinnati against New England. So are the Bengals available here? Their defense is gone already. That would have been one of my top choices. Oh, they're right here. I'm going to go Cincinnati week 1 against New England. That feels pretty good. Week 2, Cincinnati. Where are you, Cincinnati? At Kansas City. So we're not going to start them then. But week 1, I'm locking in Cincinnati as my defense to stream, and we'll figure it out along the way. A kicker here for you guys. Zerline, maybe for the Jets, is cool. Don't know anything about Jake Bates, Moody. Cameron Dicker. Sign me up for the Chargers kicker. Recon says the problem is at pick 15, the fall off is insane. If there's a high upside guy, I could go for pick 15. Who's the guy I really go for? You like Henry Urchin, or am I reaching too much? So if it's full PPR, I don't like Henry there. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold up for the year, and he's not going to catch enough passes for me to care in full PPR. I think if you're at 10, the best thing for you to do, it's probably to grab one running back and one receiver. You kind of balance it out. If we just look at what happened in this draft here, someone reached on JT. He went a little high at 8. I'm taking Breece Hall. I'm taking Jahmyr Gibbs over Jonathan Taylor. So there's a chance you get your Jahmyr Gibbs here. And, if you like Olave here, that's cool. I really like Deebo Samuel. I like Devontae Adams. I think you might be overthinking it and say pick 15. Yeah, there is a drop-off there, but there's a drop-off at any position, whether it's running back or receiver. There's a significant drop-off from the top 14 picks to the number 15th overall pick. So with that in mind, whatever you do at pick 15, say it's receiver, say it's Chris Olave, say it's Drake London. I think Devontae Adams. You could take Deebo Samuel. I think you take receiver here. You grab your if you like Gibbs, man, take Jahmyr Gibbs around 10. We know he's a freaking awesome player. He's on a great offense. He's an ascending guy. They put a lot of capital into him. I'm cool with Jahmyr Gibbs here. Maybe someone's stupid and they toss you A.J. Brown, Wilson, or Puka. There's a chance that you might get Puka Nacua to fall to you because of his current knee injury. So I think I gamble on wide receiver here because Gibbs ain't making it there. So you get your top end running back, to me, he's RB4. And then, dude, I have Olave as a top 10 receiver. I think Devontae Adams, which, again, last year he played with a shitty Jimmy Garoppolo and a rookie Aiden O'Connell. The Raiders QB play is guaranteed to be better this year than it was last year with a year 2 O'Connell and a Gardner Minshew. We've seen Minshew pummel Michael Pittman with targets. I don't hate Devontae Adams at 15, 16 overall. So to me, I think you take running back at 10 and you play the receiver game here because round 3, you're going to come back and you're going to like Devonta Smith. You're going to like DK Metcalf. You're going to like some of these receivers here. You might not like some of the running backs, but I think you hammer those guys round 3, whatever receiver comes back. And yeah, good evening to Rob, my man. I was In this one, dude, I was pick number 9, which is one off of your spot here. I went Breece Hall, who shouldn't have fallen to me. I grabbed Pacheco. I went running back start, and it turned out pretty good. Breece and Pacheco. My receivers were Metcalf, DJ Moore, and Christian Kirk. I grabbed Jordan Love at QB. Kyle Pitts, tight end 1. And then my bench is pretty sweet. McLaurin and Chase Brown, Curtis Samuel, Romeo Dobbs, Rico, Elijah Mitchell, and Bucky Irving. I don't love my receivers as much as I normally would if I had a top 5 guy, but I think I have 6 quality players that I don't mind starting on a weekly basis. I have 2 stud running backs. I think I have a top 5 option at QB and tight end each week. I think we covered our bases pretty well here. To not reach, consider going receiver than RB. Okay. And everyone's different, you know. A lot of time it is a feeling thing that you have to kind of figure out for yourself. I think there's a solid chance Jettas could fall because my friends don't think the Vikings offense is good. I mean, I would be shocked if JJ falls to pick 10. If he's at pick 10, that's a slam dunk. For me, if I'm at pick 10, the names I'm looking at are A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson as far as receivers, and the running backs are probably Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor. And, you know, it's August 6th, man. Like, Puka Nacua, he's going to dip in ADP. Like this, I don't know when I don't know when your draft is, but I would bet next week you're probably going to see Puka Nacua dip a little bit in ADP. As long as he's not practicing and healthy, there's a chance he falls in ADP. So we'll have to monitor that. But again, I do agree with you. After pick 14, there is a drop-off in terms of like stud players. I don't think either team was dumb. I think the Packers were smart to get out of Aaron Jones in that contract and to not pay him because they've been paying him a lot of money and he hasn't been playing every game this year, you know, every season. So they were smart to get away from him. Josh Jacobs is pretty durable and they get a guy that can run and catch the ball with Jacobs. So the Packers essentially are fine. Yeah, we'll pay Josh Jacobs and draft Marshawn Lloyd. And go with that duo, which to me, it's a really good duo. You also have A.J. Dillon, who's no matter how you feel about A.J. Dillon being a good player, he's dependable. He can pass pro. He can do the easy things. Might not do them well, but he can do them fine. So I think this is a situation where both teams were smart. The Vikings get a guy that, yeah, when Aaron Jones is hot, he's a top 5, top 10 running back. And, you know, you have a rookie quarterback who you're trying to break in and keep this offense on track. You might as well put good players around him. And I think, you know, the Packers are eating some of Aaron Jones's contract. The Vikings didn't pay him a ton of money. So, you know, I think in both situations it's good. And for the Packers, you know, they're looking at Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd being their future and moving into that offense. So I think both teams ended up working okay. So you got some time. Personally, I like Jahmyr Gibbs more because it's full PPR. I want a guy that can catch 60 to 70 passes and can score double-digit touchdowns. I think JT is going to score double-digit touchdowns, but I don't think his passing volume is going to be as great. You know, there's a chance, you know, dude, if David Montgomery goes down, like Jahmyr Gibbs is the dude. He is the league winner. You know, JT, you know, he is the guy, but he also has to deal with Anthony Richardson in there. And he's not going to catch passes. So I'm much more interested in full PPR in Jahmyr Gibbs. You know, there's Gibbs went 14th here. There's a chance Gibbs can fall to you at 15. If you don't have a preference between Gibbs and Pacheco, then I would say take your receiver and just grab Pacheco at 15 or grab Kieran Williams. And honestly, opinion on avoiding RBs after the first 2 rounds. Also, is it wise to get my QB&T at round 3 or 4? Okay, so I'm gonna get out of here in a few minutes. We've been. I'm glad you're here, my man, because I have this article here, the Redraft Guide, which I did a video on it too. You guys can check it out. I put it out on Sunday, where I think this year you want to try and get a top 5 player at each position. I just did a mock draft though here, and I went receiver. I went running back start. And I'm pretty happy with this group of receivers, Metcalf, DJ Moore, Kirk, and Terry McLaurin. That's a pretty sweet top 4. So there might be an addendum to this article where if like you're in the back end and you want to go RB, I don't hate that. But again, I think the ability to get a top 5 player at each position is crucial. Now, when you're looking at rounds 3 and 4, I don't like taking this has been a strategy for me for years. I don't like taking QB1 because Josh Allen has no upside, only downside. When I take Josh Allen at the first QB overall, he has to finish QB1 for me to really hit on that pick. Same thing with Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta. Those guys have to be tight end 1 or 2 for me to hit on those picks. So my QB and tight end strategy over the last few years, and it's been pretty good. You know, I take a quarterback that's being drafted outside of the top 5, and I usually take a tight end that's like on the fringe just outside the top 5. So in rounds 3 and 4, when people are grabbing, you know, Josh Allen, Kelce, Laporta, Hurts, I'm grabbing that DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith, that Devon Achane, that potentially, you know, James Cook, those potentially top 5 players, top 10 players at the running back and receiver position, because I can wait round 6 and 7 and I can get Dalton Kincaid. I can get Kyle Pitts. I can get Evan Ingram, George Kittle. I can get Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott. I can get a top 5 QB. Yes, Tony gets it. Tony, I like what Tony does in his mock draft because he has a really good feel for the board. And I think this year, look at last year. People that took Mahomes were pissed off. You know, he was QB1 last year and they did not have a good time. You know, Hurts and Allen did pay off, but it's a little bit of a risk to take a guy that first or second off the board at the position and bank on them finishing top 1 or 2. So for me, last year, these guys were Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy. In my main Superflex league, I waited and I took 2 guys that I thought had top 5 upside, and I did pretty well with those 2 picks. This year, the short list at QB for me, it's Anthony Richardson, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray. Did I say Jordan Love? Those are my guys at quarterback that I like. I actually don't like CJ Stroud as one of those guys because I don't see top 5 upside there because he doesn't run the ball as much. And at tight end, I mean, if you want to take Trey McBride or Mark Andrews, I'm totally cool with it. I usually don't take Dalton Kincaid. I absolutely love Kyle Pitts. Evan Ingram, dude. Evan Ingram is a target hog in the Jags offense in the middle of the field there. He was the top 3 tight end last year. And then if they trade Brandon Ayuk, like George Kittle's ready to lift off. You also have David Njoku, a pretty good value there. I wait on QB and tight end. How would you arrange Chase Brown, Trey Benson, Marshawn Lloyd? So it's Chase Brown clear cut above. Trey Benson and Marshawn Lloyd are handcuffs. Like it's not even close. Benson, as long as James Conner's healthy, Benson is a handcuff. As long as Josh Jacobs is healthy, Marshawn Lloyd is a handcuff. I think for Redraft League, these guys are just bench stashes at this point. Chase Brown is involved in the starting offense. He's going to be a guy that you could view him as like he could be this year's Jaylen Warren. How about that? Chase Brown is the guy that I'm grabbing 100% over the time of these 3. Yes. I just, in a full PPR league, man, I always lean PPR. I care more about targets than I care about carries in a full PPR league. Oof. We struggled. You won the whole league, but you traded out. Okay. Nico Collins and DJ Moore smash for me. So, you know, late round picks are all the juice. But anyways, guys, I do have to get out of here for the evening. I want to thank you for hanging out with me tonight. This was a lot of fun. We'll be back next Tuesday. We'll be picking from the 110. So Recon, next week, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, we're doing a 110 draft slot in ESPN, 12-team PPR. We'll do your spot for you. And tomorrow night, I might do a best ball draft. So we'll hang out tomorrow night, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. If you guys want to hang out, do it. Otherwise, Tuesday night, that's the next ESPN mock draft. So thank you guys so much for your time. Check out the redraft guide. It's free on thefantasyfellowship.com. Otherwise, the video that I put out on YouTube, completely free as well. So thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.